Hey there, welcome to the Astro Psyche. I am coming to you here on Instagram Live. Welcome to those of you that are coming on with me live, and if you're listening to this recording, welcome. So we are approaching very quickly in the next couple of hours the exactness of the lunar eclipse in Scorpio. And so I want to talk about Scorpio today, especially themes around themes that I've noticed have come up in my life, in my clients' lives, and just friends and family too, and stories that I'm hearing collectively. I want to talk about trust and power and control, and how these themes link into the Scorpio symbology, Scorpio themes, and how we can bring healing through relationship in these. So that's my intention for today, to open up a conversation around that. So let's see. So I'm gonna start with some tarot cards to sort of set our time here, set the space here. And I say this when I do readings as well. As we're going through, if things resonate with you or not, or I always tell my clients when we're beginning a reading that the chart tends to open up for me when you share, when you ask questions, when you're like, yeah, that's totally resonates, or that makes me think of this, or that doesn't quite resonate. Any questions or feedback like that tend to open up this space for me, the psychic space. And so I encourage you to share, even if you're listening to the recording. Okay, so these guys came out, so we'll use them. And I'll share with you that I pulled the Hermit reversed for me just prior to coming on here, and so I thought that was really interesting. I took that as encouragement to not be shy. I don't know if you know this about me, but I am a shy person sometimes, and sometimes it's more than others. So I'm gonna like do that here with you guys. Try to be here even though I'm shy. So, so I pulled 3 cards for us today in this space. I pulled the 2 of Inspiration, which inspiration in this deck, the Muse Tarot, is the Wands. So this is about seeking, this is about looking for things, this is about envisioning the future. And we're talking about Scorpio, we're talking about the eclipse. It's really interesting. This, it almost kind of looks like this figure is sitting in an eclipse. So that's kind of interesting. And I feel like that's where we are now. We're like, I don't know about you, but I'm like, okay, what is happening? How does right now, the things that have happened, the things that are happening, and the things that I'm feeling, how does that connect into what is going to, what I'm going to experience in the future? I also pulled the Muse of Inspiration. So the Muse in this deck is equivalent to the King. And so this is essentially the King of Wands. This is a very striking image. 2 figures sort of connected at the third eye, and they're holding flames, they're holding fire. I'm also really drawn to this this crescent shape, and the figure walking like they're walking to the yellow brick road. So already this to me is about like having a vision for the future, and when I'm looking at these, the figure is looking at the Muse of Inspiration. So we're looking towards where we can move into our power, where we can move into that which is exciting and enlivening and inspiring, which brings us life brings us energy, and it feels like it's like a journey to walk into it, and maybe a little bit what's the word, like where there's like uncertainty or hesitation or trepidation, because it is such a big thing. And then I also pulled the 10 of Emotions, which is the 10 of Cups. So a card about celebration. This card is about arrival. Like, I'm really hearing that word very strong, arrival. I pulled this reversed. So that to me means that the image, the picture, the place of arrival is not quite clear yet. And I think that that is a big part of being in eclipses, is that that we can't see momentarily, that things are blotted out so that when they're revealed again, we can see more clearly. It's kind of like wiping the dust away from a window. And so I wonder how that lands with you. I wonder if that makes sense, if you're feeling that, if you're feeling something maybe a little different from that. Hi, Emerald Astrology. It's so nice to see you here. And I see Curious Style too. Emerald Astrology says, I definitely feel that, but I feel so inspired and excited for the future. Awesome. I love that. Yeah, it is exciting, huh? So I feel like when you say that, I feel like I'm really connecting into the 10 of Emotions card, this card of arrival and celebration. And like Cups is about our emotions and our desires. It's also about relationships. It is the card of emotional satisfaction, where like everything, like dreams, hopes, wishes, everything. I don't know if you can see, but there's these like lines that are connecting from the figures, the people here, up into the mandala. And this also is like strong connection to me. So I'm saying that because I feel like whatever our 10 of Cups is, whatever the thing that our vision, our desires, even if those are somewhat intangible, those are what are guiding us to move through this place of power, to go on this journey, to follow the yellow brick road, I guess. So I've been thinking a lot lately about, as we go through this process, as we go on our journeys, as we go through difficult, or not even necessarily difficult, but rigorous experiences, how themes around trust have come up, like trusting that that we're okay, that things are going to work out, and themes around power and themes around control have come up. And these to me are all very connected in with Scorpio. And I was thinking this because I was talking to a very dear friend about our experiences of progressed moon in Scorpio. And the progressed moon in astrology is a phenomenon where it's kind of like using the moon symbolically from the day you were born, so that each day of the moon's transit is equivalent to a year. So a person may have their progressed moon in a different sign for about am I thinking that right? About 2.5 years or so. And we were talking about how the progressed moon in Scorpio is one of the most challenging time periods. And I was really thinking about this. I was thinking about this time period. When this happened for me, I had left my job in the corporate world. I think, what was I doing? I was teaching yoga. I was doing astrology readings. I was offering Reiki. I was like doing all of these different things, and I was trying to make it work, and I was like not making a lot of money, and it was really hard. And I think that those things can exacerbate an internal challenging state. And on top of that, I had progressed moon in Scorpio. And I feel like that experience really threw me back on myself in a way and required me to be really, be very like determined. And also it was a time where things like weren't just working out because I wanted them to. Things required a lot of my effort and a lot of my diligence, but also a lot of like honesty about how I was living my life and what was working, what was not working, not just financially, but also in relationships as well. What kinds of work, relationship dynamics and experiences were good for me, were like life-giving for me. And I think that Scorpio is so connected to our root. It's connected to survival and security. And I think that when we have a Scorpio transit experience, like we're having now with the lunar eclipse in Scorpio today, we're kind of like thrown back on ourselves and what it is that we have and how we are. And this can be relational dynamics. It can also be, I think we're thrown back on our projections. And I'm saying that in that it's like the things that we don't like about ourselves, or that we maybe are like, I'm not going to deal with that. And then we assign those values to other people. And I think that Scorpio brings an awareness around that, around what it is that we're projecting. And it kind of like doesn't let us pretend that that's not us anymore. And I want to say that projection is a very normal and even healthy phenomenon. We all have our defenses. We all have our way of coping and dealing with this very human life, whether that is projection or compartmentalizing or even humor. So projection is very normal. It's not something that's bad if we're doing it. And we project in order to relieve stress, to help us like cope. And if we do it too often, we start to become disconnected from ourselves. We start to become disconnected from who and what we truly are. And then that has, other long-term repercussions. And so ideally we're like bringing back in, we're like, oh, I'm like really annoyed about that person or that situation because I also am that way in some subtle way. Or I am like maybe the polar opposite of that, or whatever it is. And so when we try to like bring that in slowly, it's very uncomfortable. I don't know about you, but that's uncomfortable for me. And so when we do that, it's uncomfortable, but it also brings a lot of healing, and it brings like inner psychic integration. And this is the heart of Scorpio. And I think this is why Scorpio is so difficult for people, is because it feels very uncomfortable to be aware of the unconscious. It is not nice. It is not pretty. It is like very uncomfortable usually. But it also, it helps us. It helps us be more of who we are, and that ultimately long-term feels really good. Hi, Susie. Nice to see you. So Emerald Astrology says, I just got out of my Scorpio progressed moon period and it was a lot. Oh my gosh, you made it. Very similar to yours, but I was working for a company that was awesome, but not great for me. Yeah. And I think, it's tough because in our culture, in our system, the way that things are set up, we can't always have a situation that works for us. Sometimes we have to stay at a job or a company that isn't great. Emerald, I'm wondering if I know what company that is, but I won't share that. But if it is the company that I'm thinking of, yeah, I think that company is probably not great for a lot of people. But yeah, I think that Scorpio makes it difficult for us to ignore the things that we normally are able to sort of just like push to the side in order to keep moving through life. And it sort of requires us to stop and be like, okay, this is not okay, or I'm freaking out, or I'm like having a moment. Or I think that more often we're like, I'm not okay, like what's wrong with me? Why can't I just deal with this? And I think that it really helps us when we know astrology, because then we're like, oh, this thing is happening. There's a Scorpio moment, and so I'm going to sit with it, or I'm going to reflect, or I'm going to know that it's just a moment and it will pass, and that it's not personal. There's nothing wrong with us for not being able to deal with difficult situations. And so how does this relate to trust? That's next. So I was thinking about trust and Scorpio because I think that because Scorpio sort of throws us back on ourselves, and it is more difficult during a Scorpio period to be like, yeah, like, great, like, I'm fine, everything's fine, everything's gonna be good. It's like, no, you need to look at this. I think that it, in some strange way, fosters trust in ourselves, because as I think about the moments, like the difficult moments that I've been through, whether those are Scorpio moments or Saturn moments, when I reflect back on that, I'm like, yeah, I did that and I'm okay and I'm fine. Or that was really fucking terrible and I'm not fine and I never want to go through that again. But also it's like there's this part of me that survived through something and that can never really be taken away. And so I feel like in the best circumstances, Scorpio is about trust in ourselves and trust in our ability to move through and to cope. And ideally, we have people in our corner who we feel a sense of trust with as well. I think that the challenging side of Scorpio is if we weren't met by the world, by Psyche, by our loved ones during challenging times, then there can be kind of like a sense of distrust, like this very subtle, unconscious, like thinking that we can't have the things that we want. And I think this is something to like work with and to reflect on, that I've been reflecting on a lot, is what is it that I can trust in? What is it that I know to be true the most? And sometimes that is, I know that the sun is going to rise tomorrow. I know that I'm going to wake up tomorrow. I know that this person or these people have consistently shown up for me. And so I can trust in that. I can trust in these previous actions, or maybe that people haven't shown up for you, and that you can trust that you can navigate through that situation as best as you can. And so I think that Scorpio tests our trust in ourselves and in others. And I think this is very connected to power as well, because one of Scorpio's core themes is power. And the power that we have over ourselves, the power that others or that systems have over us, and the power that we intentionally or unintentionally give away in little bits to others. And I think that power is a complicated issue because there are scenarios where we literally don't have a certain amount of power or autonomy over a situation. And I've been thinking a lot about how the more that we can like claim our sense of power and autonomy in little ways, that sort of like plants a seed to bloom, and how power and control and trust are very interconnected. Because if we don't feel like we have a sense of choice, if we feel like we don't have a sense of power over a situation, then our sense of trust is sort of like flattened and smashed down. And then things get very heavy. And this is kind of like the bottom of the Scorpio energy. As I'm talking about this, I'm thinking about the myth of the Sumerian goddess Inanna, and how she took her journey down into the underworld to visit her sister for her sister's wedding. And she got down there and was all of her garments and her jewelry and everything was removed from her in order to go down into the underworld. And when she got there, it was all of these experiences of like heaviness and sort of like a deadening in the underworld. And I think that this is what can happen, what we can feel, whether we are in a Scorpio moment or not. I think that we all have these experiences of like really going down into the depths of challenging experience. And then in this myth, there's a figure, Inanna has a helper that comes down and sort of like in a kind of a trickstery way, but also like a very compassionate way. He sort of like gets Inanna out of there. And so I feel like this is a part of the Scorpio, is it's like we do need to go down into the underworld. We do like this is a natural part of psychic processes, that we have ebbs and flows. We feel good, we feel like really inspired, and then there's a lull in the energy, and then we go back up, and this is very natural. I mean, this is like the cycle of the moons. We have a new moon, which is more internal, full moon, which is brighter, and there's all of these variations in between. And so I think that this ability to come back up and come back out, there is trust involved in that process, in knowing that we're not going to be down there forever, all the time, even though it often feels that way. And I think when we know that we have choice, that creates a sense of powerfulness, and that creates a sense of feeling control, which also is like, okay, I can trust that I'm going to be okay. So all of these things feel very connected to me. I wonder how that lands for you. And because we're talking about this being the eclipse, I feel like, so the eclipse is exacted in about an hour, at about 10:30-ish a.m. Pacific time today. So as we're moving into this eclipse, I think that it's a moment, and astrology doesn't happen in these like neat and tidy little boxes. So what I've been thinking about is like what are the themes that are coming up, not just today, but also in the last month. And this is something that I notice with readings too is that when I'm looking at someone's chart and I'm like, okay, this and that transit is coming up, and this is how that would correlate in your life. These are maybe themes that would come up. They'll be like, oh yeah, I'm planning on, taking a trip, or doing this thing with my business, or having this, medical, I'm already having this medical situation planned, or whatever it is. And so it's kind of like we see the astrology happening, and then usually there are events that we've already planned that are sort of like sinking into that and like feeding into that. And so I think this is also a really helpful reflective practice if we want to not just learn astrology necessarily, but like connect in with the flow of our life, with the flow of psyche, to notice what's happening now and kind of like the astrology that is happening in the near future, and what's happening in our life, and where there's like a meeting of those two, and how we want to kind of like braid those two together. Because I think that it's surprising sometimes how well things are already flowing in together, because astrology is symbolic and it's a symbol of what is already happening. And my point in saying this is that what's happening now is a precursor to what's happening in the future. Nothing happens in a vacuum. Nothing happens like an on-off switch, usually. I mean, unless we're talking about Uranus, that's a whole other story. But usually it's kind of like the things that we're working on now are leading us to what is happening next. And so we can look at like what is already happening. And if we don't like what's happening now, we can look at the symbolic themes and start to expand that and look at what else may fit into this vibration of Scorpio. So for example, if we're feeling really excited about something that's coming up, we can use this time to continue to go into Scorpio themes, which are exploring the patterns, what's opening up, what exactly feels really exciting. And oh gosh, I just had something that, what was it? Scorpio is also about research and like really going, like spending a lot of time like really getting into something. Now the challenging side of that is obsession. So we're going to use that instead of like being obsessive about something that is challenging or like ruminative thoughts. We're going to try to redirect that into something that we're very excited about. And I think that this is like a day-to-day practice too, especially if we're feeling a lot of anxiety or just kind of uncertain. With Scorpio, it can really help us to find something that we're excited about, that we're passionate about, and to really go into that and to spend a lot of time on it, and then also to interrupt ourselves and to be like, okay, I'm done with that. That is complete. I need to shift my energy to a different thing. Because that's the other thing about Scorpio, is that it is a fixed sign. And so fixed signs are Scorpio and Taurus, as well as Leo and Aquarius. So these four signs have the ability to really follow something through and to go very deeply, to offer a sustained effort. And there's a lot of staying power with fixed signs, but there's also a resistance to change. And so this is why we want to be careful with Scorpio energy about getting stuck in certain like ruminative thoughts or obsessive kind of like thinking, or getting stuck down there in the underworld, so to speak. And so that's why I think it's really helpful to focus on something that we're very excited about, because usually that is going to ebb and flow and change. Okay, so I'm feeling like we're moving towards the end here, and so I want to pull another card that's sort of like a final wrap up and advice kind of energy. And I wonder how you like this. If this is interesting to you, my plan is to do these live streams on Instagram every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, to sort of just have like this container to have like a more casual kind of chat. And we may talk about transits, we may talk about just general astro stuff. So if there's something that you really want to chat about, let me know. But I'm feeling kind of like I want to have like an informal space with you, and I've been having like a lot of like thoughts and musings, and but I'm not always like in the mind state to like sit down and do a video on it. But I was thinking this is like nice to have like a container where my thoughts will find a channel, so to speak. Okay, yes, I love the encouragement. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that that you all are here. It's nice to have you here and to connect with you. Okay, so one final card. So if you like, you can close your eyes or just find yourself in a centered place. Really focus on your body and your breath. And ask your heart or your spiritual guidance team or your ancestors or any spiritual guidance figures that you work with to please offer a message to you through this card. I'll do a couple more. Okay, so I pulled the Queen of Materials. This is equivalent to the Queen of Pentacles in the Smith-Waite deck. I love this card so much. So this card to me is, so she has this, it's kind of like this Frida Kahlo almost-ish looking figure, because she has this really beautiful like rose flower headdress and Mandela-like earrings. And she's just kind of like looking at you like, what? So the Queen of Materials is about taking care of yourself. It's about, I pulled this reversed as well. So this card is about nurturing. When it's upright, it's usually about nurturing and caretaking for others. When I pull it reversed, for me, I usually read it as it's important to take care of yourself, to give yourself some extra nurturing care. I'm also really like thinking, I'm like drawn to this circle around her, and it feels very important to protect and to nourish your energy field. So this doesn't necessarily mean like avoid settings, but it's more like when you go into a public space or you speak to people who maybe you feel like they require more of you, to imagine yourself in a bubble of light, to do any other clearing or protective practices. I think this is always a good thing to do. We could say this for, any day of the week, but that this card is coming through now means that I'm also noticing like her head dress and the top of her head is like coming out of the circle a little bit. And so it feels like your intuitive awareness, your psychic awareness is expanding. It's like expanding out of your normal field, so to speak. And so you need to create a bigger space bubble or a higher level of intuitive and psychic protection. Really easy to do this through imagining yourself in a bubble of light. I like to imagine myself in a bubble of light surrounded by this outer shell of blue light as like an extra protection. And if you're in a public space, you can even imagine that outer shell has like a mirror reflective quality to it. But yeah, it feels like there's the crown chakra, the intuitive sense, the connection with the unseen world is expanding. And so with that, your sense of maintaining your space bubble, your energy bubble needs to expand as well. Okay. I hope that you enjoyed this. As always, if you resonate with me and my work, I would love to do an astrology reading for you. You can find out more on my website. I'll have that in a link somewhere on here. I'm wishing you a really lovely, easeful, and joyful time through this last tail end of the eclipse portal. And I'm wishing you a lovely weekend, and I'll see you soon. Bye.